Silver Society.
Welcome to the Silver Eye Society podcast, the podcast where we look at film to find the ancient themes behind our modern issues. We are looking at a film today that is very special. It's a film you probably haven't seen. It's a film that I hadn't seen or heard of until we watched it for this podcast. It is a film of human drama, a film of grit, a film of suffering, a film of desire, a film of ecstasy, perhaps even madness. It is Hands on a Hard Body, which you probably still don't know what we're talking about. And fair warning, you should watch this movie only if you're really into like kind of weirder films. Like if you truly appreciate film as a foray into understanding human nature, you will like this. You may also like it if you imbibe a little bit of cannabis before watching it. I think it's a good movie for that. That's my suggestion. And we're going to get into the drama of humankind and all those messy desires in a documentary that's essentially about a competition to win a truck that requires a group of people, competitors, to keep at least one hand on said truck at all times until everyone else except one person gives up and they win the truck. It is the most Southern American, quaint kind of competition I've ever seen. So I suppose we should just jump in because this may be one of the most insane and great or just ridiculous episodes we do yet.
This is a great film. I'm going to give you the word of the podcast here. I don't really care for all of your warnings off of the people. I think that this film is an American classic.
It is.
I think that it is, as you said, a film of great and grand drama, and that everyone needs to take a look at this film. But before we get into that, but not before I take credit for bringing this to your attention and bringing it to the podcast and bringing it to you, viewer. Hands on a Hard Body. Also, Hands on a Hard Body. It's a documentary. It's a family-friendly film.
It is.
From the title, don't get any weird ideas.
I thought it was going to be like some weird, like 70s German artsy, sexy
No, it's
film.
not.
And I was like, since when do you recommend stuff like this? And then as soon as it opened, it was like this 80s VHS quality in the middle of nowhere, thick Southern drawl. I was like, oh, this makes sense.
A hard body is a type of truck, I guess. But anyway, this was filmed. I need to stop with the not getting the word of the podcast out to people. The word of the podcast, this episode, and we may move the word of the podcast towards the bottom of the episode. We're still thinking of things. 2022 is shaping up to be an
experimental year.
Sure. But tenacity, that's going to be the word for today. And it's a simple word. And it's a word that you should remember. And it's early 15th century, tenacity, quality of holding firmly. Quality of holding firmly. That's what these people do to the truck. They hold firmly. They hold firmly to the truck. And they hold firmly to their human dignity. Do you understand? That's what this movie is about.
And to the goal.
Tenacity. And to the goal. Tenacity. From the Latin, an act of holding fast. We won't go into a lot of that. I just want to help everybody out, language enthusiasts, people who like words, and point out, you know Spanish. What's the word for to hold in Spanish?
Aguantar.
No, that's fucking wrong. What about, no, that can't be right. What is, it's got to start with a T or something like that. Have I outed you as not actually knowing Spanish?
No, I think you outed yourself as not knowing etymology. To hold.
To grasp, to hold.
Coger. Aguantar.
Damn it, this was supposed to be an easy...
Llevar.
It's supposed to be an easy word of the podcast. You were supposed to go straight into this easily. T-E-N-E-R. Tener, that's what it says.
Oh, that's to have. That's
I know it's to have,
it.
but it's comes from. I know that, but it comes from the same thing. Do you
Okay,
understand?
fair enough, but that's
Having and holding is the same thing. That's probably why even when you get married, they say to have and to hold.
Yes,
you know
okay,
that? Think about
but-
that shit. That's some fucking etymology trivia.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
To have and to
actually.
hold.
All right,
Repetitive.
relax. You're overwhelming me with your
psyched.
fucking shit about the word of the podcast. Let me get a fucking word of my own in here. Whatever, fine. I'm not going to debate the differences between having and holding. Holding as a functional term, which is what I thought. If you said have, it would have been, I maybe would have gotten it. But whatever. Anyway, I think
When our
that's-
minds expand, it sometimes seems like rage. But viewers are actually just watching your mind expand through the word of the podcast.
Yes. Yeah, because the idea of like marriage vows to have and to hold fast, to have in the sense of tenacity. Because I always thought that never made sense. Like to have, it's like, got you, like we're together, I have you now. It seems possessive. And it shows how ignorant we can be of what traditions mean and what older verbiage means when we have these more contemporary understandings of a word, because my interpretation of that phrase in a marriage vow was always kind of like more of an idea of possession, not this root maybe in tenacity, which is this idea of holding fast to something, like holding firm to something larger. Very interesting. And a point about...
I just made that up, though, so I have no idea if it's real.
Oh, what the fuck?
As you were challenging me, I said to have and to hold, and then it clicked in my mind. So my guess is that it may be related. Misinformation 2022.
Yeah. All right. The other thing that we're going to get into, and why this is a great word of the podcast, actually, this is one of your better ones, is that one of the things that's really interesting about this movie is that you watch all these different personalities try to hold fast to a goal. And so this idea of tenacity as being to hold firm to something is interesting, because what ends up happening to most of these contestants is that they kind of get loopy. Like they start to lose focus, lose will, lose the ability in some cases to actually keep their hands firmly on the truck, which is the one thing that they have to do to win this competition. And you see why that comes about. I guess we're just going to do spoilers.
Let's wait until towards the end. We don't really need... I suppose you can. Okay, so spoiler alert. If you shouldn't... You need to watch this movie before you hear this, because it will fuck up the movie for you if you don't.
Yeah.
Because it's a competition. It's a documentary over multiple days of seeing who wins this. And so viewers beware. Now we're going to tell you maybe who wins it.
I mean, let's just go into the thing, and maybe this will come up more organically instead of me like throwing it, in the beginning, ruining the movie in the very beginning of the podcast. But anyway, so let's go into this idea, right? Because when I first started watching this movie, I was like, what the fuck am I watching? Like, it seems, there's so much to say. It seems very quaint. It seems silly. It seems, and this movie would get shredded by the fucking idiotic critics that are around today that filter everything through the stupid, shallow, postmodern, critical theory type of framework that waters everything down to some type of contemporary grievance against the world and tradition. If you look at shit like that, you always come out with the same boring outcome. That's why that ruins art. That type of framework ruins art, because you can't look at this movie without being like American consumerism or whatever boring fucking take people have been churning out of the academics for decades at this point. Don't do that. What's really interesting about this movie is to listen to one of the contestants actually that has this I love the juxtaposition of these very like rural, southern, like laid back, kind of plain, naive in a way. And I don't mean naive in the sense of like they're, childish, but they're not hip. This was a time in our culture when everybody wasn't plugged into trends and media constantly. So there was actually a lot of genuinely normal fucking people. Not everybody was an influencer or had a brand or was on the latest trends. People just looked normal, spoke normally. And there's an innocence to that almost. Like there's a stripped awayness to that because we're not constantly performing what we know the culture desires of us because we're also plugged into it. So one of the competitors is interesting because he has this juxtaposition of being like this very Southern regular type of like person, but coming to these really interesting, deep, almost Greek competition type insights. And he says it's not a competition, it's a human drama, something to that effect. And it is the deepest way to approach a documentary about some silly competition to win a truck, is to actually see the ancient human dynamics, the ancient test of will, things that people have done for millennia in different cultures and for different reasons and in different styles. So there's a lot of things that get said in this movie, right? So shall I go through them?
Well, no, I think that briefly, it needs to be said that this is filmed in Longview, Texas. I lived for some time about a couple hours west of this area, so I actually know this area. It's hot out there, and the reason I'm saying this is because even when you just think about what it really is, I don't think it should be dismissed as a frivolous, silly thing. It's very difficult to stand on concrete for long periods of time. I have worked in my life before. I have stood on concrete for multiple hours. But so to lay this out for people, this competition takes place over days outside underneath a tent. The people have to stand on concrete with their hand on the truck, wearing a glove so that it doesn't scratch the surface of the truck, which is funny. But also, they get a 5-minute break every hour, and then I think every 6 hours a 15-minute break. But I don't think I could win this, and I'm in reasonably good health. I mean, everybody smokes in this, which is awesome.
Yeah.
In the 90s. But you know, it wouldn't be particularly easy. So I don't think it should be dismissed as it is a physically
and mentally
challenging thing to do. To try it. I shouldn't endorse that. It's actually dangerous. Don't like staying up because if nothing else, these people are staying conscious for multiple days in a row, which is not easy to do. I've done it some. It's not easy to do.
But they're standing and they don't have smartphones to listen to podcasts and shit about, but there is one lady that listens to her like cassette player or whatever it is of religious music, which is which is something interesting. And it returns to that idea of human drama playing out in so many different spheres. And, what we miss out on when we refuse to recognize how these stories play out in any place there are human beings. It doesn't matter whether it's a bunch of like regular people competing to win a truck by just staying awake and standing next to the truck for days at a time, or if it's gladiators in an arena with lions, or if it's an army, marching against an enemy, whatever it is. There are the same elements at play, of course, with different stakes. So there's that. But the challenge, it is, I don't know if I could do it either.
No, I do. You couldn't. There's no way.
Fuck you.
What are you talking about? You'd be done in you'd be done and you'd last 6 hours.
6 hours?
You'd maybe last. In fact, I think everyone, and I'm including myself in this, I'm not putting you down. I honestly see, so this was filmed in 95. There is a tangible, look at the word of the podcast that may be related, a very real difference in human beings, I think. If for nothing else, your favorite subject, social media. No, but I think there's a...
You're just calling everybody bitches now? Like, we're all just kind of bitches, which is true.
It's hard. Well, first, I really do think that you're you're underestimating how hard it is to stand on concrete for that long. It hurts a lot. Like if I've worked jobs where I've had to do that, and like it is painful. But
I'm not. I do agree that it's a lot. I just
but
think
yeah,
that
I
could
just
maybe
think
do more
that
than 6 hours.
yeah, I'll give you 12.
But not for a hard buddy truck. I wouldn't do it for the truck. I don't want that.
But this is something else people don't understand, because it's very easy to dismiss this as, oh, look at these rednecks want to win a truck, right? Okay, the truck is worth $18,000 of 1995 money, which probably, I mean, I'm guessing here, it would probably be around $28,000, $30,000 truck or something now in today's terms. I have no idea, but something like that. It's not 18,000. Money, there's inflation, as we know, recent and throughout time. So you have to understand, man, I lived around this area. It's poor. That's over a year's worth of wages. Remember, one of the contestants says, I'm going to sell it. Like, they're going to just get the truck and sell it. So they're competing for like a year's plus wages.
It's really cool because you see that there's like, these people really push themselves. Like, and I almost cried at one part of the movie, which feels silly, right? But it's not, because it proves that human drama plays out in the most unusual, unlikely circumstances. And that's what makes the movie so fucking awesome and moving. And it's just, it's weird. It's quaint. It's cool to see. This is the kind of shit that I love. This is the kind of things that I don't think we make that much anymore. Werner Herzog does this style of documentary, in my opinion, where he's able to uncover these kind of deeply human stories in places that you wouldn't expect them to be. And it takes a real level of genuine curiosity and a refusal to impose your, narrow understanding of what humans are or what they should be or whatnot onto what you're trying to depict. And such a cool movie. So anyway, yeah, let's talk about the human drama and stuff. So we got a lot of things here. They say stuff like, this is the best feeling I've ever had in my life. Of course, that was the winner. And one of the people that had not won said that it's the second best feeling because, they hadn't won, but that it was still at that level of a rush. And then another person said that there's a great camaraderie. And so people talk about how
it's actually the same person, which is important. The same person says that. Yeah, Benny, the previous winner he had already won the competition before. So that's why, because he's quite the character, and that's what makes a documentary a lot of times. You got to find this person, because that guy was the sit-down person that kind of over-narrated it in a way. But you can have both this extreme competition and camaraderie at the same time, which is what I saw as a difference in what I assume. I don't want to be too hard on us younger folks.
I mean, you should though, because it's like, that's the one thing that's making younger people shitty, is that no one's actually hard on them, including themselves. And if they are, they're doing it in a maladaptive way, because you see in this movie how a certain type of struggle, a certain type of suffering, even of discomfort, of pain, because the people that lose, that fucking sucks, man. They were there for like, some of them were there for like, until almost the very end. Imagine staying up, like, what is it, 36 hours, 40 hours or something? They went really far.
No, the competition goes
80, right?
I think close to 80 hours this time.
So imagine, struggling, getting to that close to the end and losing. And
there can be only one, which is he says
that.
So good.
Benny
because
that.
he says, I saw a movie a long time ago. I think it was called The Highlander.
Yeah.
There can be only one. It's so good. But and he's correct. Awesome. There can be only one. But my point was that I feel like today, if you did this, and maybe they still do it,
I don't think they would allow.
You would get people being a lot meaner to each other, and especially in that, because to some degree, this is almost a reality television type thing. I mean, they're documenting a real thing, and they're doing that. Hey, let's interview the person off when they're away from that. There's some aspects of that, right? In this film, you don't see very little. There's one or two people that get a little bit angry
Yeah.
about the fact they felt like there was cheating going on. It was overlooked a lot, but no one's sniping each other. People are actually kind of supportive of each other. It's not bloodthirsty where I feel like if you did this today, and maybe I'm sure that there's I'll tell you, okay, a brief note. I need to make a brief note here. It's not this. So this film isn't available on Amazon and Netflix and that kind of stuff. You found it on YouTube. I found it on MailChimp Presents. I don't know what they're doing over there, but hey, it worked. Good job. Also, good pick. It's an entirely different thing. What I was going to say though is that another movie that we were watching that came up, I watched on IMDb, which is it's free at IMDb through Amazon, but it's with commercials. And I haven't seen commercials. I only see commercials every maybe 12 to 18 months or something, because for some reason every year or so I end up watching a television that has commercials on it. And that really did show me how quickly things can change.
What the fuck are you talking about?
I'm talking about.
I've seen commercials and that shows me. What the fuck are you talking about?
Because you don't understand
Organize your thoughts. Yes, I don't.
I don't watch commercials. I don't see advertisements.
What the
I
fuck
live
does
in
a commercial have to do with the changes?
I'll bring it around for you. I'm
culture?
sorry, because to be honest, I forgot about the IMDb thing, and I was trying to talk through and make it up. I don't know why you had to put me out. I was trying to talk through it. I was a little much. Okay, we'll leave it in. I'm not going to edit it out though.
Of course not.
My point was that this was done in 95, and it might seem too rich to say, oh, look how the culture's changed so quickly. Even though, granted, that's 27 fucking years. It's actually quite a while.
It's changed massively. So,
but
fair enough.
I'm just saying, and then I was trying to put together the fact that I watched commercials, which is rare. I don't usually watch television commercials.
Okay.
It's stuff for and that
I know.
Even within a couple of years, things can change quite a bit when you look at that. And then that was, to me, saying, of course, things can change massively in approximately 30 years if things can change fairly quickly in a shorter period of time.
So are you saying that the commercials indicate cultural change each time you watch them throughout, as years pass, each commercial set that you watch?
I was traumatized by commercials. Yes, I was traumatized by commercials on IMDb. Free. It's not free. They're giving you commercials. For a different movie, the movie Donnie Darko, which we're going to be covering soon. Yeah. Okay? At first, I thought it was this movie, and then I remembered, no, that was wrong.
Okay, so I'm cutting you off. You need to have a break. You're like the contestants now that are starting to get.
There could be only one. You
wouldn't be able to do the hands on a hard body. They'd have to take. You'd be like the girl that was just walks off into the darkness, which is why I don't think they probably do this competition anymore. And if they do, it's probably different because it would be like, you're hurting people. That would have been a liability. People would have freaked out and been like, oh shit, she's going to walk in the street and then it's going to be our fault. There's such a weakness in our culture overall because now everything is treated as if people are so fragile and so weak. And hey, guess what? Maybe they are increasingly so because we are treating them as such. I think those things go hand in hand. But there's this, there's two things in this movie. You definitely see this shift in character. And it's funny because, whatever, I don't like to kind of take this assumption, but the stereotype would be that these characters that are very poor, living in a small town in rural Texas that are trying to win a competition for a truck so they can sell it. And some of them are like, I go to school, I can have money or whatever. This is kind of very, low culture or whatever. But the thing is that these people are so much more fucking real, so much more fucking insightful, so much more honorable in some regards. Not all of them now, but some of them have this integrity, this intensity of character is what it is, and the ability to make these really insightful observations around them, this idea of you really get this camaraderie going, or one of the lines I really like was, I think it was Benny that says, you learn the values of humanity because you see other people suffering, and this thing,
struggling.
it's more struggling, yeah. It's more than just a contest. It's more than just winning a truck. So there's these kind of very low language observations. They're plain spoken facts and truths, but there's so much depth to these observations. And there's something very humanistic about this movie because it allows the average everyday person who this kind of person is disappeared from our culture right now. Like,
it hasn't, though. That's where there's a mistake.
Well, okay, fair enough.
We're living in an illusion where we think that everybody
That's right.
is a
Our
bitch.
worlds are so whoa, no.
Bitchy.
We're talking about
Yes.
different things. I'm saying like the average like rural kind of like everyday person or whatever. I feel like culturally when you look at movies, and of course it's not like this was a blockbuster or something, I get that, but I feel like the people that we see in media it's shrinking to be such a small, strange caricature of what a human is that there's a loss of like normalness. I feel like people aren't normal anymore. Like I know that
but
there
that's
are
what
these
I'm trying to
people-
tell you. I'm telling you that you're just getting the look. That's a mistake. It's because of what we're looking at. If you're looking at Instagram all day, of course, normalcy, being average, being decent or whatever is not going to be rewarded. Look at how this is going to sound. I don't know much about culture today. That's one of the problems because I put myself away from it. But to be famous now, okay, you have to like cover your face and like have full body tattoos and things to be like a musician or something. I don't know. My friend told me about something called an island boys. I don't know what they are. They're like these like little white kids or something with all these tattoos on them, but they're a reggae band or something. I don't understand. But the point is, and the point this person was making is like, you have to turn yourself into a bizarre clown figure to get attention because everybody's attention is frayed to just nothingness because all we do is stare at little screens. So what I'm trying to say is those human beings still exist. Normal people exist all around you, but you actually have to put your head up away from your phone and look around you in the real physical space. I know they exist. Not everyone's an island boy. I know.
No,
I know
God,
that.
thanks for that. Yeah, well, the thing is that also there's a problem, right, where our culture starts to incentivize insanity and, clown behavior instead of talent, instead of integrity. And it's not that, the celebrities used to be high quality. They kind of were. Like, there's also that, actually. Like, as if you go to really older movies, actors, used to have experience in life also. They used to have been in the war or something like that. And even musicians and whatever, they were a little more interesting of characters. There was,
What I'm trying to
have
say-
the criticism of culture always. So I do think our culture is slowly becoming more degraded. But my worry is that eventually, we can't say that, but the normal people, like the average person, is still unaffected. Not for long, because a lot of the times they're consuming that culture. They have phones too.
Right. But they're not going to. I'm saying that we have an issue right now that's been evolving for a long time, that you need to get people's attention. You need to be, it's not enough just to be beautiful anymore. If that were the case, I'd already be famous. Let's just be honest. It's not enough for that, okay? Because attention spans are shrinking due to media changing, the media landscape changing, you have to almost commit atrocities upon yourself in order to be seen for those 5 seconds or whatever long a TikTok video is, in order to then potentially get some sort of fame.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't know that that's all I'm trying to say. But the majority of people, if you go to Longview, Texas now, don't look like the Island Boys. Have I said something wrong? Are the Island Boys some sort of something I don't
No,
understand?
it's not even. They're just. I don't even
What
think
is
they're
it?
famous. Like it's just like
I don't know what it is.
these people that made a video and they got mocked across the internet because it was so
Okay.
clown. But I mean, they got their 5 seconds of fame. I don't know
I'm
if they're
talking
like
about
dropping
them.
a record now or something. Probably.
I don't even know. Look, see, I'm talking about them.
exactly.
See, it works. That's the problem, is that it does kind of work. Because my friend saw
Yeah.
some weird looking person on a computer screen. I was like, hey, look at this weird looking person. And then I shared this information with you. And then so it's a problem. Anyway.
Okay. Yeah. Well, we've gone here. I don't even know where we've gone.
To the islands. With the island boys.
I hope not. I really hope not. Well, okay, yeah. So I guess the overall point that I was making is that I think there's something interesting about the way that the figures in this film, there's something much more human and much more real. And I think that part of that comes down to just how fast our culture moves now. And I think that rapid movement breeds a kind of cynicism almost. It seems like our culture is overall more cynical because the insights that some of these people in the competition have are actually they hearken to an older tradition even. This idea that you feel you want your competitor to lose, but you also feel sympathy for them because you know how hard they tried and you know that that's their moment, that they've just lost it. They've lost that goal that they were striving for. And there are these insights that I don't know if people make all the time anymore. Like this whole movie is full of very average seeming people that seem to be able to touch on insights that I don't see any of my friends able to make. And they're the ones with college degrees that have all the information at their fingertips. So I wonder.
But part of that's a lack of that's also, I think, partly a fear of being sincere or that sincerity itself seems to
that's what it
appear
is.
as being naive, and you don't want to act naive because a lot of people don't want to act naive because they actually are, and they don't want to give up the game, that they're kind of dumb.
See, that's the difference, right? Because there's something in almost all of these competitors that rings to me as naive, but not in the sense again of like, oh, they're ignorant or something, but they are so honest. They're not concerned with what they should say. And I'm sure on some level, every human being has an ego that they're trying to think about, how am I being perceived? I'm on camera. Obviously, they do that. But they seem to be less affected by what I see in our culture now, which is this constant performative element, or just a withholding, just a more a strengthened facade that doesn't allow people to just more openly express things, or they go straight into things that are more narrow, which is like, well, this is why this policy blah blah, or this is this thing, or instead of kind of making these really more true, more general observations that you see some of the competitors make in this film. I feel like instead you would see, if people did this now, it would be things of like, oh, well, capitalism is making us do this. I feel like I would see things like that. Maybe not in that area. I think that's also slightly a more urban phenomenon, but
you don't want to get caught in just making platitudes, obviously, because the worst case of this, what you're talking about, is just platitudes, and those are distributed widely online as well. But again, taking it back to the technological aspect, which you tend to do this more than I do, but thinking about it, like, we're two common people, are we not? We're two common people. But think about this. We do a podcast, right? I'm talking about the difference between 1995 and 2022. We have to now, we think of presentation, even if and obviously I clearly don't do it very fucking well, but I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, so for that time period, the idea of even a camcorder and like that, you saw the handheld microphone, that's novel to some degree. Now everybody is performing, or a lot of people are performing all the
Yeah.
time. Even if you're not doing a
That's what it
podcast,
is.
people are all
Just your phone,
doing.
you're posting a story,
just-
you're putting on
you're on
Instagram
camera
a
all
picture
the
of your
time.
family. Yeah.
Do you understand how different that is? How fundamentally
Oh,
different it is to
shit,
have
man.
a constantly being photographed,
Recording,
constantly.
yeah.
It's all the time. So
And
of course
it's a weird
that's
thing because it's even my parents, right? Like my parents that are very of that time. This is a movie that like they come from this time, you know, where they would have had that quality of being more, you know, direct and kind of like naive, you know, so to speak. But they are also affected in that way. My dad less so because he spends less time doing that. But my mom, I can already see, you know, she's kind of like, I saw this thing on TikTok. We should do a family thing like this. I'm like, no, I don't want to do TikTok trends, mom. Like, what?
Tell her that it
It's
is
so
a
crazy.
psyops from the Chinese Communist
Yeah.
Party. Tell her that, and then she'll be fine.
Yeah, she'll reject it. Maybe. Yeah, so it's a weird thing because you see it also start to erode the people's ability to have existed in that time when you were not being constantly recorded. It changes us very quickly. You know, I mean, I grew up in a time where I was not like, it's not just like, oh, pictures or cameras either. There's also the sense of immediacy in publication of those pictures. It's one thing when the picture is taken on a film camera and it's going to go in a family album too. It's a different thing when you know that a picture that could be taken of you can end up seen by the world, you know, tomorrow. That's very strange.
And it contains metadata that has your geographic location within
most
it.
people need to
And
think about that, but yeah.
Yeah, I know. But see, most people don't think about it, but almost everybody knows there's more to the technology than they even understand, and they just use it anyway because they feel they have to. But 99% of everyone that uses Instagram could disappear tomorrow, and it wouldn't matter in terms of the content they make. And I include myself in that, friends. I'm not trying to be down on anybody. I'm saying though, they're consumers. That's how the world works. That's just it. It's got to be 99% or more. People could just delete your profile, and it wouldn't really matter. And you could basically call your family and your few friends, and things would basically be the same thing. But we have an entire culture, and it's not just America; it's worldwide, pulled into these vortices of rapidly changing technology and technology that rapidly changes us. I don't think, and we'll move on to the next point because I don't know why I've decided to get into talking about cell phones a lot. I call them cell phones.
You're a hand on a hard body.
Well, that's right. The problem is, I'll tell you also, is that it's a little warm in here right now.
Oh,
so I'm
boy.
overheating a little bit. And I also
you're
just
in an air-conditioned home and you can't even keep it together. We've been podcasting for 35 minutes and you're already airing out grievances.
I know I couldn't do it. I'm telling you.
All right, enough.
I would lose.
Enough. Let's move on. Yeah, for real. Our generation is bitches.
I'd beat you,
what's
though.
Gonna happen.
I beat you
know,
easily.
man.
Dude, I would totally beat you. I mean,
Yeah,
there's
but
no
you
chance.
haven't left your house. Like, you've been locking down beyond the orders. So
Yeah,
think
but I
you may have
stand a
worn
lot, too.
yourself. Okay.
And I have no furniture. I have very little furniture, so I'm hard. I just like lay on the floor.
I am
Being
a hard
hardcore.
body.
You text me okay. You know what? Before we go to the next point, and we're gonna move this, you texted me last week and said it's 68 degrees. It's too cold downstairs. I can't record.
It wasn't 68.
It was in the
it was.
60s. It was in the 60s. I think I might have overemphasized. It might have been 65 or something.
Man.
I have the proof. You texted me, and we did not record a podcast because you said it was too cold in the mid 60s. So I would defeat you easily.
Maybe not in the heat. I could take the heat. I do better with heat. The cold, I can't do the cold.
Sure.
All right, moving on.
Wow.
So we can speak about the naturalistic storytelling of the film, but we've already kind of touched on that. So I don't think
We
I'm gonna
have.
do
I just
that.
want to talk about Community.
Yeah, I just want to talk about Community.
I just want to talk about Community.
Yeah, if you want to hear more about the naturalistic film, you know, go back to the beginning of the podcast where I railed against postmodernism as a cynical lens, which brings out the same result every time you analyze a piece of art, which is some boring, cynical take. Okay, so let's talk about Community.
Would you suggest that I'm an expert on Community?
No. I would suggest that you, maybe from afar, you study community, but you're like anti-community. You're pretty not into it. And
Well,
neither am
I do know something about the rural community.
Yeah, that's fair.
That much is true.
I didn't say you're ignorant of it. I say that you don't participate. So on that level, sure. You don't.
Yeah, I mean,
you don't. Don't try to justify.
All right.
Maybe
go
once
ahead.
upon a time. Okay.
What do you? But apparently, all your friends are just like.
No, my
people
friends are
were
not
like
my community.
You don't have friends.
I don't have a
This is
community.
all
I
a
have
lie.
people steal like Halloween pumpkins from my porch. I live in a failed state. I am the opposite.
You do live in a failed state,
of
mentally and
community.
physically.
Not physically. Not yet.
No, I mean you not personally.
Oh.
I'm not saying that you did. Okay,
All right,
so I just
here.
want to point out that you see this woman, the religious woman. They all bring their little fan people with them, right? They have people that support them, that live there. So she tends to bring people from the church that sing praises and clap their hands and things. And then another woman actually has a fan club, but I mean, it's not really a fan club. It's like some person just wrote on a marker, "We're your fan club," and it's like so they showed up, you know. But hey, I don't have a fan club that writes on my igloo cooler, you know. So who am I to judge? Then one man has his parents help him. His parents go and buy him shoes from Kmart to help him. He doesn't last very long, but you know, I understand his concern about thunder and lightning. A lot of thunder and lightning storms out there in Texas, I'll tell you that. So you notice that the key point to this is that everyone almost
quickly.
everyone, no, silence. Everyone has someone with them at the end, supporting them, helping them. One of the last contestants, what are you laughing at? I'm trying to give a message of community.
Ghetto. We just tell each other, shut up, and then just keep talking.
Well, I mean, the internet is bad, so we have to do that, you know? What do you do?
Okay. I just wanted to mention the meth head characters because,
But
I mean,
who's the
dude,
meth?
all their teeth is gone.
That's not meth, man.
Both of it.
Yeah,
of them.
that's not necessarily
and he
methamphetamine.
even said at one point, he's like, "Oh yeah, she stayed up several nights all on her own before." That
No, because they work hard. Meth wasn't a big thing in the mid '90s. That took a while.
What is it? Why are they missing the teeth in the front, both of
because
them? And
people
they stay
miss when they live out in their dude. I mean,
no one else's teeth were missing there.
Well, they had a rougher deal. I mean, the guy.
They also got ornery. She was the one that was like, I quit because everybody else is cheating, which is also kind of like addict behavior to be like, everybody else is to blame and I'm surly about it now.
I'm not going to disparage.
She didn't like people. She's against the God lady. You know, she was very like, I don't like her. She's trying to mess with me. That lady was a little bit.
She was starting to go paranoid, though. That's what happens.
Triad of personalities.
That can happen, and yeah, but I don't necessarily think that's.
I won't accuse,
meth.
but I'm a little.
I grew up again in rural Kentucky, and I spent time not far from this area in rural Texas. Some people don't have teeth. That's just how it works.
Why would they both have lost their teeth in the same?
Well, what do you think do you think that crystal meth for some reason only makes you lose your two front teeth? Is that part of the thing, or I don't know?
More than two.
Well, whatever it is, I don't know that necessarily is the thing.
See, that's pretty hardcore, also.
Yeah, it's a hardcore life.
It is.
Out there.
But so is meth. That's a hardcore life. Look, I won't disparage. I didn't like her attitude. Okay, I would have. I would have overlooked it.
But your attitude would be pretty rough also if you had stayed up for 48 hours and I can totally see you accusing people of cheating in the hands on a hard body competition and then running off and yelling at everybody.
No, that's
not in a meth way. Yeah.
No, just in a bitch way. No, I wouldn't do it. I would, leave with honor if I failed and I gave up or whatever. But the other thing is that he says, I have stayed up with her. I'm staying up as long as she does in support. So it's that other sense of this, you have all the people with their different forms of support show up, even if they are crazy. He makes a hat. He does. Bless him. Out of
now, the one person, the younger girl, she doesn't seem to have as much of a support network there. She's going on her own. She's all Ayn Rand style, she's there. She lasts towards the very end, but she's the one that eventually just wanders off into the darkness.
You see what happens. No one's there to kind of be like, where are you going?
Well, someone did find her later. They said her friend was walking with her, and
she was never found again.
The broader point here is community, people.
Casualty of the hard body competition.
To have these people, you see the winner has his wife there is very helpful, like, really being helpful.
The winner's wife was not helpful.
She was.
I think you're talking about Benny's wife.
No, she was also. The winner's wife was there with him all the time and like giving him massages and getting him food. Yeah, what are you talking about?
Yeah, you're right. She was there. She just wasn't as much of a character.
No, but everybody at the end, the younger Hispanic guy, he had friends there that was helping him. He lasted for a long time. Religious woman, obviously, clearly.
She had a
whole fucking church.
So what's the point?
A prayer chain.
Yeah, we've got it. Everybody had their people. So what's the point here about community?
I wonder, I pose this as a question because perhaps I make too many statements. Perhaps you do too. What's the mission statement of the Silver Eye Society? Is to look for the prehistoric themes. The ancient themes
a little more
in movies
general.
And bring it into our problems. I feel like, and I'm excluding myself because I've always been a little bit like that, right? But do you feel that we have more and more lost this sense of community and basic connection with people? Not just obviously family and things like that, but
Well, it's not even a question. Okay, there was a survey, and we spoke about that on we spoke about it on one of the last episodes. I don't remember what it was, but that there was some survey recently in the last few years that Americans have less friends. So there's that. That's one metric to go by, right? I mean, if you have less friends are part of your community. That is an indicator of a trend toward less connection, less robust interpersonal relationships. And I do think that part of that, there's many reasons for that. And those are all speculation,
maybe we should key into that. Why? I mean, why is that? It's terrible. If this is happening, this is a problem. No, I mean, why?
Yeah. Well, it's a weird thing, right? Because at the same time, we're becoming more connected, supposedly online. I have the ability, and I have made friends. That's the fucking, again, I come back to the radical way to use social media is to like, don't have all these superficial fake, connections on it. Genuinely reach out to people that you think could be friends and make real friends. This is something that I think is very strange because it parallels what are cult tactics or abuser tactics, which is a person is more easily manipulated when they're isolated because they're more susceptible to the influence of another person, and maybe perhaps it's that they're seeking that connection, so they're more willing to do something to get it that otherwise maybe they wouldn't do. At the same time, there's also the element that if you have good relationships, you can turn to people and say, I'm thinking about doing this, or someone approached me and they asked me this, and you might actually get a real answer that can help you. But it seems that all our relationships are becoming so constricted, so superficial and shallow, so maybe transactional in a way. And I think it comes back a little bit to what we were talking about how that facade that people are more likely to be holding up now because they're concerned about performing a certain mode of existence or outlook that is, amenable to at least whatever dominant culture they want to be a part of. I think there's less genuineness. And when there's less genuineness, you have less connection because you can't forge genuine connection if you're not willing to be genuine. And I think that that's probably what the trend is. I think it's very unfortunate. We're not, even me, I catch myself the other day, like I thought about it and I was like, I don't even use social media like a real authentic person. And it's funny because I say very much what I think. It's not that I'm like, I'm afraid to say what I think. On the contrary, that's what my social media is. It's like, here's what I think on this, here's what I think on that. But it's not a lot of me being like, I had a lot of fun today doing this thing. There's actually a lack of vulnerability in my own presentation online. And I started to perceive that because people are vulnerable in different ways. Maybe for one person, that kind of oversharing of like, I'm feeling sad today isn't actually vulnerable. And maybe for another person, that kind of courageous, oh, I'm going to say what I think about these politics. Maybe that's not actually vulnerable. And so I think we're less open. And of course, that's probably likely to a culture that's so ready to, demoralize and shame and destroy anybody that steps outside of a certain narrative. And if you just happen to be the target of the day, so you just play it small and you keep yourself, more to yourself to avoid getting into that storm.
But that may be right, but there may be the idea, and this is more where I come from, is that you shouldn't share everything to strangers. Like, why did that's actually a new idea. See, you took that as an obvious thing to do. You're saying, well, because I feel vulnerable or whatever, I would be afraid to do this. Maybe the correct way of thinking is why would anyone do that in the first place?
And I wonder,
it's never been the case.
How much that's strange. Like, think about it. If you did have this ability to be open and to connect to essentially the entire world, wouldn't it naturally beget that you're more careful and more closed off? I mean,
yeah,
that's kind of the city effect, right? Like, people that live in very large cities, they're less friendly to each other. And they have to be, because people less. Like, you can't trust that, oh, well, just because you live in my city, so you're probably all right. It's different if you live in a small town. You may almost know everyone, if it's small enough. And so there's an ability to be more open in that sense. So I wonder if online is this kind of like, New York City times 1,000, where everybody's so hostile and so jaded and guarded as a protection method against this abnormal exposure to so many random people, and also people that are not people. It's not people that you look in the eyes. We're lacking all of these cues that make us feel safer around a person. Like, I can meet someone that I've never met before and then shortly become friendly and open with them. But it's much harder to do that when you're just exchanging text on a screen, because you don't have all these other cues of body language, looking someone in the eyes in real time, that allows you to feel more connected and open in that very moment. So I think this is a very strange thing, because then the question is, well, does that behavior online start to train the behavior we use in everyday life? Does it start to kind of create a mindset or a mode of existence that then becomes the default? And I'm sure that you could see a correlation between amount of time spent online in those type of like social media or whatever, and like jadedness, cynicalness, anti-social behavior. Maybe not always, I'm speculating, but I bet there's something there.
Distrust would be the main thing I would want to look at. And to bring this back to the film, something that we didn't really put, because this is a fairly small town, it is the balloon racing capital of America, though, Longview, Texas. These people can't be too cruel towards one another, because they're probably going to run into each other later. You can't be... And I think, though, that does really touch on something, this idea that we're open to the world online now. And look, everyone knows there's a certain percentage of people that are predators. They're simply predatory human beings. They're out there. They exist. They've got high-speed internet, and we all know this, we there are really malevolent people in this world, and they have an internet connection. So, of course, people aren't going to want to be quote unquote vulnerable. So my whole thing was this: it was interesting to me to hear you see to hear you say that the default position should be that. But then when you really think about it, of course, that doesn't make any sense, because if you are exposed to the entire global community, it's a bunch of strangers.
Yeah. Yeah.
It doesn't mean they're all. It doesn't. In fact, the vast majority of people are nice, and
Yeah.
and a lot of the friction online is people misunderstanding each other. I think
It
I
is.
truly believe this. I refuse now to have any political talk whatsoever via text message or social media. The context simply doesn't work. People misunderstand each other all the time. I just reject it out of hand.
And
I
they
won't do
read
it.
in aggressive tendencies because
Sure.
they're already feeling, like it's a heightened subject. So people tend to read in more malicious or more aggressive tone. And I see it. Like I see all the time people misinterpreting each other's tweets, and
Yeah.
someone like trying to say something and then the other person coming back with like oh well, if that then this, a snarky rebuttal when the person actually was trying to be friendly. But we
it
just
doesn't work.
And there's that negative bias. So you got to think about how our natural negative bias, and then that like kind of ambiguity of how we interpret interactions online, like the emotionality behind it, probably ends up having us just lean overall into the negative. So by kind of like just naturally, you're going to have more negative experiences than not. I mean, depends on what you're doing, I guess, like how you use it.
Sure. We've found plenty
I
of
also
nice
don't do
people through the Silver Eye Society.
Yeah, they're
I've had
all
people reach
awesome.
out to me and say really nice things.
Yeah.
And relatively few negative things. So you know what? It's not all. I'm not trying to make out the social media landscape, the internet, the new world we live in. I'm not trying to make it out as a dystopian predator filled to the brim with predators out there trying to cause harm or even mistakenly cause strife. I don't think that's really what it is, but I'm just saying what I see actually happening finally, I just want to say this and then I'll be done with my point, is that I think what we're going to see is communities splinter off. So I think Twitter will basically splinter off into different things. All these bigger things are going to splinter off into more homogenous communities. This isn't necessarily good or bad. I'm not making a judgment on it, but I'm pretty sure it's what's going to happen. I think that people are finding each other intolerable to the point where they're actually, for everyone's own good, they're going to kind of remove themselves a little bit. But of course, I actually think people are so addicted to their phone now, they can't just put it away. So they're going to have to find other communities and other like more niche interest groups. I think I can see that happening.
Yeah, not
in
this
order
kind
to
of like huge pool where, it's, I've heard this already as a theory for some types of, I don't know. I think in a way Reddit kind of is a little bit of a model of that where, yeah, the whole thing contains from gardening to, podcasting, whatever, but you can choose what subgroup you're in within that larger realm. And you can get pretty narrowed down there so that you're pretty much just interacting with fairly like-minded people. Now, of course, all those things still suffer from the lack of humanness, where it's just text on a screen. It's very easy to be snarky or to interpret snark. But that trend, I think, has already been observed in some cases.
Yeah, but I think it's going to go. I think that people are going to find the general big social media companies like Twitter, Facebook, where everybody is put into one pool of people. They're going to find it more and more intolerable, and they're going to
fucked up. If you think about
why would anyone think that would work in the first place?
It is pretty
Let's put
fucked
everybody
up.
together. Well, people have different opinions, and some of them have drastically different opinions.
And you're reducing the length at which they can even express themselves. And then of course there's just that, again, like non-human anonymizing aspect, which I heard Peterson make a really good, I think he was talking to Brett Weinstein, and he was talking about how, I think he was talking about basically this, which is we don't even know how this kind of a technology affects people. We have some knowledge because we start to see it happen in real time, but we can't predict or perceive all of the changes. And one example of that is the car. The way we relate to human beings, just if you put them in a car, suddenly the same person that you'd say, excuse me, and kind of like, just go about your day, becomes like a figure of attack. Like you will cut them off, like you'll curse at them, you'll flip them off, like you'll dehumanize them to the point of being this rageful target just because they're in a car. There's something about the car that allows for that.
Bring that back to the movie, though. You know what's interesting about it? The way that physically the human beings are set up is they all are around a circle and have to look at each other.
Yeah.
So you can't. That's why that change in physical, or that rule which creates the physical space of the competition, in a way, it's almost a kind of tribal, like being around the fire or whatever. No one's going to. I think that just that physical space somehow probably increases friendly feelings towards one another. I mean, you could see a little bit with the religious lady who started singing. I would have a hard time with that too. And that's why I kind of defended the meth woman, because she was annoyed at that. I was like, that would be rough, dude. If you had to sit right next to that while someone's just screaming, the Holy Spirit stuff.
Yeah.
That might be difficult. But you really see, like, the people are they did do one really great scene in the movie, though, where right before one of the main characters quits, there's this very odd physical movement. So one guy's standing there and he's neutral, but the other guy starts moving back and forth almost aggressively, like you see. And sometimes when people get ready to fight, they do this movement, and you see, and it's not, the guy had been up 70 hours or something, so I don't think it was conscious, but studying how people move in that physical space around there is really interesting. Anyway, I will join this competition in Texas at some point if it's still going on, and I will win.
Yeah, I'd love to see that. I'd just stay up to record it. Like, I forget the car. My prize would be recording you degenerating, standing around the hard body. Well, what is our conclusion for this episode? I don't know. Maybe our culture is fucked. Maybe that's the conclusion. But you don't have to be fucked. That's also the conclusion here. In all these things, there's always a choice. There's always a choice to not allow yourself to degenerate along with the culture. And that's always been there. That's always been a struggle for the individual. And I believe that, what can you say? Oh, I don't want this struggle. I don't want to be influenced by my shitty culture. I don't want to have to bear witness to the degradation of my culture. Well, what do you want? You have to have some kind of struggle with your culture, or else you are the island boy, So either you fight against the island boy and you become the Ubermensch, or you become the island boy. Don't do it. But what you should do is sign up for the Silver Eye Society. I don't know if this is a patron episode or not yet. If it is, thank you for being a patron. We love our patrons. We labor hard to bring quality content to the patrons. So you can sign up to join us or stay joined. Follow us on social media, like and subscribe. And if you didn't like this, go ahead and dislike it. It doesn't matter, because your voice is being stifled. We don't believe in that, though.